And the next thing I want to watch with everyone is this is by Swan Bitcoin, right? Almost 200,000 subscribers, right? The shocking truth about central banks' endless war and Bitcoin. This I feel is gonna be wild because it has Tucker Carlson, bro. So you gotta think this is wild, bro. So this is being talked about on the Tucker Carlson show. You have to comprehend he's been in the news lately. So it's wild that this is gonna be talked about on his show. And I don't think he's part of the system, but everyone's part of the system, you know what I'm saying, that I'm talking about. I just don't think he's actively like knowingly a part of the system. Do you see what I'm saying? He's like one of the lost people that doesn't know he's stuck in the like a mental disease. You see what I mean?
Banks are not financial intermediaries. Banks create money out of nothing. But it's a Ponzi scheme because it works only as long as the banks continue to create more credit. The Act of Parliament establishing the Bank of England, it said the purpose is to make war.
Wait, the head of the German central bank and the head of the American central bank were run by brothers during a war between the US and Germany?
Tucker Carlson recently published an interview with Dr. Richard Werner, a renowned economist and author of Princes of the Yen. At the time of this recording, the nearly 3-hour interview already has over...
Yeah, I feel like everyone needs to hear that again.
Central bank make war. Wait, the head of the German central bank and the head of the American central bank were run by brothers during a war between the US and Germany?
Tucker Carlson recently published an interview with Dr. Richard Werner, a renowned economist and author of Princes of the Yen. At the time of this recording, the nearly 3-hour interview already has over 750,000 views, and it's easy to see why. Werner walks Carlson through the origins of banking, the evils of the Fed, the mechanisms of our credit-based monetary system, and the shocking connection.
I ain't gonna lie, for my own personal, like, because there's no way I can, like, react to that whole video. 3-hour interview. There's no way I can do that. I mean, I could, but that would be a really long video for me to put on YouTube, and I'm not gonna do that. So this is what we're doing for YouTube. I think I might find that original and watch the whole interview because I like context.
Between central banks and war. So today we're bringing you 3 powerful clips from that conversation and breaking down what they reveal about the depths of our broken monetary system and its downstream effects on society, culture, and politics. When I first started going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, the thing that truly shocked me the most wasn't the inflation or the bailouts. It was learning that our...
I got nothing against you guys, nothing against you. It's just like, I look at you, homie, and man, I don't know what happened, bro, but like, why does it look like your eyes look super sad, bro? Am I the only one who's noticing this about his eyes, bro? Like, they look like either they're really sad or he been hitting the pipe a lot, bro. Like, it looked like his eyeballs was smoking weed.
The entire system of central banking and money creation is deeply tied to war. Most people never make that connection, and that's why they don't see the need for something like Bitcoin. My goal in this video is to lay out just how broken the system really is, so that you can see why fixing the money might actually help fix everything else.
We're going over the fucked up central bank endless war and Bitcoin.
Before we get to the connection between money and war, we need to start with something even more fundamental and more commonly misunderstood. Because the truth is, most people have no idea where money actually comes from. Most believe that banks simply take deposits and lend them out, but that's not what fuels the system. As Dr. Werner explains in this first clip, the entire economy runs on something far more fragile and far more shocking: credit created out of thin air.
So the solution to all this and why economics has made no progress is bank credit. Now, bank credit, and actually you should say fully bank credit creation. This is a concept that's been a taboo or a secret in economics. If you look into it, you realize there's 3 theories of banking. The second theory is slightly older. That was dominant until the 1960s, so-called fractional reserve theory. And you may have heard this fractional reserve banking. What is that? Well, this theory says, and this part is similar, each bank is a financial intermediary. It just collects deposits and then does the analysis, lends out the money. But in aggregate, as banks interact, there's money creation. And that's where students' ears should have pricked up. Money creation. They even talk about a money multiplier. What? That's the second theory. Now there's a third theory. And that one had been made out to be a wacky conspiracy theory. But it is the one that was more or less quite widely known until about a century ago. And that's the credit creation theory of banking. And this one says banks are not financial intermediaries. Banks are special. They have a unique power that no other player in the economy has. And that is the power to create money. When you get a loan, no money is transferred to you. It's transferred away from anywhere else. And you just credited new money out of nothing. That is not transferred away anywhere inside or outside the bank, which seems, quite sort of extreme.
Like magic.
In fact, one uses, the convention is to use Latin for this. The money is created ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, because that's
So
what
when
it's
it's the
done.
empirical test, the conclusion was the financial intermediation theory is rejected and the fractional reserve theory is rejected. Banks create money out of nothing.
Right, exactly.
By the way, you can look it up. It's the most downloaded paper of all Elsevier publications and it's open access. So, can banks individually create money out of nothing?
Any bank.
Any
Not
bank.
just, to be clear, not just central banks.
Any bank. In fact, that's the whole point. We're talking about normal banks. With central banks, it wouldn't be a surprise.
But the Bank of Omaha can
Yes,
just
any bank creates money. When you take out a loan, the money.
Every bank creates money out of nothing. Bro. Our species is so cooked right now. Like, it's super cooked. Like, and the weird thing is like, I don't know how much violence is gonna happen. I don't know how much chaos is gonna happen. I don't know any of that stuff. I just know I'm on a path that has nothing to do with that shit. I'm going over here where like duality no longer exists because it is seen as insanity. And that to be in duality is to be a crazy person walking around talking to yourself, not knowing that you're talking to yourself, getting into fights, talking to yourself.
Money that you're given as the borrower didn't previously exist. It is net new purchasing power that is being created and added to the money supply. And that's how the system works. Now, to understand how the system works is a precondition for having good economic analysis and good policy recommendations. And that explains for over 100 years, macroeconomics has made no progress. They have no banks in there. They have no bank credit creation in there.
This is the core mechanism of fiat money. Banks don't lend your savings. They create new money out of thin air when they issue loans. That means the money in your bank account was likely created as someone else's debt. And your
Yep.
mortgage, your student loan, those dollars didn't exist until you signed on the dotted line.
Yep.
This system has massive implications. For one, inflation is baked in because money is always expanding through new debt issuance. Two, crashes become inevitable because if credit stops growing, the system seizes and the money stops flowing.
Yep.
Three, the economy is hostage to debt. Money supply and growth are entirely dependent on banks issuing more credit. And this ends up affecting everything: your rent, your groceries, your wages, because when money is created through loans, someone always owes. And if that debt isn't paid back today, it's carried forward to the next generation. This is a system built not on
Hence $37,000 trillion in debt. And like, it's funny too, because I tell people, like, I've told people, like, you have over $300,000 of debt on your head. You don't even comprehend that you owe because you're part of the United States. And so therefore you are responsible for the debt. They don't even, like, people don't get there. They owe that. They allowed that to happen. And the reason you guys comprehend that debt that they owe isn't even from them. Like, most of that debt isn't even from their lifetime.
savings, but on leverage. And as we'll see in the next clip, that leverage doesn't just affect individuals, it warps entire markets.
So actually, the banks are creating a lot of money and they're pumping it into the real estate market. And now you don't have to have studied economics to tell me what's going to happen with real estate prices.
What's going to happen is what's happening in the United States, where real estate becomes unaffordable.
Exactly. It's not rocket science. Real estate prices are pushed up. This is true for all assets. So when banks lend a lot for financial assets, the prices, the values of these financial assets will be pushed up. But it's a Ponzi scheme because it works only as long as the banks continue to create more credit for others to join the game and buy these assets.
And then notice how everyone has to be a part of the game. If you're not a part of the game, you know what you are? Homeless.
And the moment,
And you gotta think, the first time I can remember being homeless, I was 6 years old, bro. And I had to fucking sleep in a Ford Bronco for a while. It was a while. It wasn't a short stint. You know what I'm saying?
the music stops, the bank
You gotta think, this is while also still going to family members' houses to do stuff.
banks don't increase credit for asset purchases, then asset prices won't rise anymore. Because with this, when I discovered this, I found the causal factor behind the land price rises, and I tested it, and it's true. It's the real estate lending explains the real estate price movement very nicely. And that's, of course, that has many consequences.
So big picture, I think please correct me, but I think what you're saying is that most of us assume prices are set by markets, which is a product of supply and demand. A lot of people want something, it becomes a lot more valuable relative to its abundance. You're saying that actually prices are determined by banks.
Yes, and actually it's more than that, because your question implies you're still, we're all influenced by what's mainstream, and your question is about prices. And then, of course, the price of money, the interest rate, and that is what we're being taught. Think about prices. It's all about prices. The economy, equilibrium, markets, demand, supply, prices. Quantities are much more important. And that's because there's no equilibrium. That's one of these other ridiculous assumptions. They just assume equilibrium. There's never been any evidence of any equilibrium. So markets are rationed. Ration markets are determined by the short side principle. Whichever quantity of demand and supply is smaller, that's the common denominator. That determines outcomes. It's quantities. And what's the most important quantity in the whole system? The quantity of money. And where does it come from? Created by banks.
So what happens when all this
That's interesting when it comes to Bitcoin. I'm sure he's going to explain here in a second. I'm going to let him explain, and then I'll explain what I'm talking about right now. Like, it has to do with Bitcoin. And that's interesting how he says the pricing isn't important. It's the quantity. Oh, that's so... okay. I'm going to let him see. He's probably going to explain with that how it ties in. Never mind.
bank created
I'll
money
explain in a
gets
minute.
funneled into real estate and financial assets. Prices go vertical, not because of real demand, but because of easy credit. This is how we get housing and stock market bubbles and student debt crises. Because when banks issue credit into these markets, prices inflate far beyond their utility value. And it creates a dangerous illusion that these assets are going up in value when really they're just absorbing newly created money. It also explains why housing has become increasingly unaffordable and infeasible for current generations. It's not just zoning laws and foreign buyers. It's the sheer volume of credit flooding into real estate, bidding up prices, and locking out ordinary hardworking people. But remember, the system only works as long as the credit expands. Once that slows or reverses, the whole thing collapses.
Right.
Which is why every new
slow
administration just kicks the
crashing
can
train wreck
further
right
down
now.
the road. As Werner pointed out, economists often focus on prices, inflation, deflation, and bubbles. But the real driver is quantity. It's the sheer quantity of credit, where it flows, how fast it expands, and who gets access to it, that determines the shape of the economy. That's why a system based on credit creation is inherently unstable.
Correct.
It constantly swings between euphoria and collapse. It needs constant fuel, and that fuel is debt. So what kind of system doesn't rely on ever-expanding credit to survive? That's right, Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't care about credit. It doesn't care about monetary policy. It doesn't need a central bank or a bailout committee.
Let them cook.
It has no adjustable levers, only rules. And the most important rule is this: there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. That fixed supply is everything. It
Okay.
means the quantity of Bitcoin.
He hasn't explained fully yet, but I can't help myself. All right, when he was talking about quantity, right? Quantity, excuse me. Anyways, so here, I'm just going to look up that right now.
Bitcoin
If you were to give everyone in the world Bitcoin evenly, how much would that be? Summary: each person would get 0.0021 to 0.0026 Bitcoin, right? So you have to comprehend 0.01 is 100,000 Satoshis. So 0.002 is 26,000 Satoshis. Or, oh, excuse me, never mind. I guess I miscalculated. Oh no, yeah, I'm tripping. My bad. I am tripping. 0.01 is a million Satoshis. So 0.01 is a million Satoshis. I totally misspoke there. My bad. So you see, look, if this was to every person, that's 210 to 260,000 Satoshis, right? If you gave that amount to that's everyone gets the same amount out of 21 million Bitcoin. Now you got to comprehend some Bitcoin are gone forever. I see 3 to 4 million. Do you see what I'm saying? So realistic circulating supply is roughly 17 million. So out of 17 million Bitcoin, everyone would get about that much, right? Now let's go back to the video and I will explain that in a second.
Bitcoin is not a variable. It's a constant that removes the most dangerous weapon in fiat, the ability to inflate supply and distort value. When fiat money expands and contracts based on who's in charge and what they want to fund, Bitcoin simply ticks forward, block by block. Programmatic, predictable, and unbiased. No political agenda, no housing subsidies, no credit booms or busts, just sound money with transparent issuance and incorruptible accounting.
Correct.
And that's why high net worth individuals and serious investors are waking up to the truth. Bitcoin isn't a speculation or a mere hedge. It's a lifeboat away from a system built.
Like, think of it this way. It's the most in order, like, let's just say this, like, no, even the best hacker in the world doesn't have enough lifespan to be able to break into a wallet for Bitcoin. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they don't have the time. Like, they don't even have the time to go through the possibilities in one lifetime, even in a possible way to even have a chance of even possibly getting the correct answer. You see what I'm saying? To break into a wallet. Like, I'm talking about, I just found out the number is large, bro. It's quintillion, bro. It's large, bro. It's a large ass number, bro. You see what I'm saying? And the time is like 1 to the 56th power or 53rd power. Fucking damn it, I forgot the fucking mathematical. Like 1.155 something to the 53rd. I can't remember how to say it. Anyways, it's a very large number and that's the amount of years. Like, so the years is like astronomical because of the astronomical number. And if you take that astronomical number and divide it by seconds and divide it by minutes and then divide it by, so I'm saying, and break it all the way down to days, you get so many days that it's like times your life by 1 trillion. So 100, let's say like 75, we'll just go with that, right? 75 times 1 trillion. And that's how long it would take someone to fucking try to break into your Bitcoin. It ain't gonna happen. And because of that, on top of that, let's go over the quality thing, right? Quantity, excuse me, not quality. I don't know why I keep saying quality, it's quantity. You see how because of how many Bitcoin there actually are going to ever be, it's impossible for anyone, like for everyone to have one Bitcoin, right? And so even if it was distributed evenly, the most anyone can have in that scenario is 200,000, right? Now you got to think about that. Where Bitcoin's going, quantity, doesn't care about credit. Like, so like, the more I invest in Bitcoin, the more I don't even have to worry about that whole system because Bitcoin doesn't care about that. And so, like, you got to comprehend, I'm attempting to be at 1 million Satoshis by the end of this year, right? Which will be four times one person. So I'd have, if it was distributed evenly, I would have 4 people's, mine and 3 other people's Bitcoin by the end of the year. Does that make sense? Like, is the mathing? So you see what I'm saying? And I'm attempting to get to 10% or at least like 8, maybe 9% of a Bitcoin within the next 5 to 8 years. Right? And so you got to think that's 8 to 10 million Satoshis. And if one Bitcoin is over $20 million, I don't have the math off the top of my head. Fuck it. Let's just say if, like, let me try to remember the math. If the Bitcoin is like 20 million a Bitcoin, then like 1 million Satoshis, or 1% of 20 million is $2 million. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, I did the math correctly. No, 1% is two. Is it? It's not $200,000. Is it? It could be 200,000. 10%. Oh my gosh, I haven't done math like this in my head in a while, so my apologies. And I'm trying to do it without like busting out a calculator or doing anything like that or asking ChatGPT. I'm not gonna get stuck on that though. Let's just say like the more Satoshis you gain and the higher the Bitcoin goes. Like the sooner you get Bitcoin now, while it's still like you have a chance. Cause like once Bitcoin goes to $1 million, what I'm talking about doesn't exist for you anymore. Like the chance to do what I'm talking about doesn't exist for you anymore. You see what I'm saying? Like the chance to make generational wealth is right now, and the moment it gets over $1 million a coin. Right, look here, that's a way to go to base it. $1 million Bitcoin, that means 1% is $100,000. You see what I'm saying? So now do that math with 20 million Bitcoin and 1%. Do you see what I mean? And you gotta think I'm gonna have 1% of a Bitcoin by the end of the year. And if Bitcoin, and it's projected like Bitcoin's gonna be in 15 years or less, gonna be $20 million a coin, then that means I'm already sitting on generational wealth that is gonna last forever. Like I'll never have to sell it. I can just borrow against it forever. And every time I borrow against it, part of that money I borrowed will just buy more Bitcoin, which will give me the power to borrow against it even more. So I will always be able to make more money than the interest. Do you see I have to pay back? Do you see how that works? I never have to worry about money again. Because my Bitcoin will allow me to borrow money, and I'm making more money off of the interest off the Bitcoin than I have to pay back on the loan that I did for the Bitcoin. Do you see how I don't know how well everyone knows economics, so I hope that's making sense to people. Do you see how it's working? And I'm just telling you, bro, it's getting, especially when Bitcoin hits $200,000, it's gonna be intense.
On credit, distortion, and collapse. And so if you're managing significant wealth and trying to navigate this shift, don't do it alone. Swan Private gives you direct access to Bitcoin advisors, enhanced custody solutions, and the infrastructure to protect your capital through this monetary transformation. Visit swan.com/private and connect with a member of the team today. And if you care about shaping Bitcoin's role in America's future, come to BTC in DC, the policy-focused Bitcoin event bringing together builders, thinkers, and lawmakers.
You know what I made it up?
BTC in DC will be at the historic Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., September 30th to October 1st. And you don't want to miss it. Visit btcindc.com and use promo code SWAN for 10% off tickets. And finally, a quick shout out to Mara, the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner, for supporting this show and for helping make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. And now we reach the deepest layer of this discussion.
Cool.
The one almost nobody talks about and very few understand. Why were central banks created in the first place?
To scam everybody.
Werner, their origin story isn't about stability. It's about war.
Can I ask you, since you brought up the First World
Oh,
War,
that's wild.
and we're on the cusp of a war right now, potentially a global war. What is the view of war by the banks? Like, what do the banks think of it? You've described the banks as the single greatest control mechanism of human behavior. in a society, I think.
Particularly the central banks,
Central
because
bank.
they have
The bigger the bank, the more the power, but their power extends beyond.
You know, the one word they're leaving out about central banks is central banks are owned by Rothschilds. And I'll say it again just because my microphone might not have picked up that well. Rothschilds. If I really needed to, I could do a deep dive. I could do a little backstory on how all the central banks are tied to Rothschilds. Anyways, let's go.
Just
Yes.
like their relations with other banks, their power like determines a lot of what happens in your country.
Yeah.
And they're not under the control of voters, right? So it's an extra democratic institution, which happens to be the most powerful, which is like crazy. I'd love to know how that happened, but how do they feel about war?
Well, central banking and warfare are very closely linked. As I said, I mean, the modern major bank, the first modern major bank, and central.
And look, we, the people, allow crazy people to do crazy things because we, the people, have been dumbed down by the crazy people. Because even though those crazy people are fucking crazy, they are smart people. They are not dumb people. They're just crazy people. And so all us dumb people need to stop being dumb. Like, I've been working on it for 14 years. Everybody needs to stop being dumb and start registering that the psychopaths want to keep us dumb so they can continue to be psychopaths. Because obviously, the group of psychopathy or in our society is smaller than the level of people that don't want to be that. Like, I've never ever in my entire life had any feeling or inkling to want to do any psychotic, crazy, psycho shit, kill, harm people, do any disgusting, you know what I'm saying? So I don't get that. I don't get psychopaths. You see what I'm saying in that sense? Because I don't get their brain, right? Well, I know there's more of us than there are psychopaths. It just feels like there's more of them because there's so many of us that are too stupid to figure it out.
Bank was the Bank of England, of course, and in the very act of Parliament, the law founding it, it says this institution and mechanism, because they didn't want resistance. They don't mention Bank of England. What we're doing here is establishing the Bank of England. They kept that secret. We're doing a new mechanism by these investors to raise and lend a lot of money to the government, namely by establishing a company. We'll be allowed to establish a company. That's the Bank of England. In order for what?
Right.
In order to wage war. It was in order to make war. So they're closely linked. And of course,
Shocking.
in its founding
Shocking.
in exactly the Act of Parliament establishing the Bank of England, it said the purpose is to make war. Do you know why the Federal Reserve was established? And there was a rush to establish it for 1914.
The year the First World War started.
Exactly.
Destroyed Europe.
And that's why it was
done
established
with
in
subterfuge.
1913.
I mean, they're gathering everyone
Yes.
on the 23rd of December, 1913, when nobody was there.
When
and then
no one
also
was
introducing income
around,
tax.
we're just
That's
gonna,
also
we're just gonna change the whole entire concept of money while no one's paying attention.
the Bank of England. It was established.
Over 100 years later now, I'm alive, sitting here going, where the fuck am I? How the fuck did I get here? What the fuck is going on? And why did this fucking happen?
Together in the same act, calling for establishing new taxes. Why? Because when you have these central banks, privately owned central banks established, it's basically this trick where these entrepreneurs persuade the government, oh, you don't want to make, you don't want to issue money.
Hey,
issue
Sean,
money.
bro, I
We'll
appreciate
issue
the
money
like,
for you.
bro. What's happening, buddy?
That's what they're essentially saying.
We're going over central banks and endless war and how it's tied to Bitcoin and what Bitcoin's doing to that whole apparatus.
Without being so direct about it, but that's what they want to persuade governments to give up the power to create money themselves. We'll do it for you, and we'll lend you the money.
Of
and
course.
henceforth, well, how do we get our money back? Well, we love to lend to the government because you can raise taxes, and that's why taxes were introduced. The federal income tax didn't exist before the creation of the Fed. It's also created in
So you
1940.
couldn't have one without
Crazy,
the other.
bro. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
you needed both of
whenever
them.
central banks created,
Right?
they introduce new taxes, one way or another. Yes.
The central bank of the United States, the Fed, was created right before the war. I mean,
Yes. And
right before the war,
Exactly.
2 months before the war. What was the role of the central banks during that war? The most important war in the last 1,000 years.
yeah, well, it was really at the pinnacle of the war economy. There's no doubt about that. It's very clear. And the same is true, of course, for the other side. And now from 1917, the US and Germany were at war, which is very sad. A lot of Americans are of German descent, and Germans didn't really want to be at war with Germany, but that's what happened. So we've got these two countries at war. Sad. The soldiers dying in the trenches. And their economies organized as war economies. At the pinnacle of the war economies are the central banks. So who were the key players in the German central bank, the Reichsbank, which was 100% privately owned? Was somebody called Max Warburg, or Max Warburg, you might say in English. And who was at the pinnacle, in fact, was a founder of the Federal Reserve. And who was the key person there? It was somebody called Paul Warburg, his brother. But of course, the soldiers have to kill each other, and these two countries are...
Wait. The head of the German central bank and the head of the American central bank were run by brothers during a war between the U.S. and Germany?
Yes. Now, I have to qualify it. They weren't the formal governors, but they were the key people.
Just think about that.
Wild.
The central banks funding World War I were guided by brothers, one on each side of the conflict. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's conspiracy history. Central banks, for the first time ever, gave governments unlimited war chests. No need to raise taxes.
I've never actually heard that term, conspiracy history. That's what the fuck, dude. Bro, you should not attach that word. Those, like, military intelligence, bro.
Taxes or sell war bonds to citizens. Just issue bonds, sell them to your central bank, and let inflation do the rest. This is precisely why wars became longer, more drawn out, and vastly more destructive, starting
And probably why they need World War III to be happening.
with World War I. Before central banking, wars had hard limits. They ended when the money ran out. But now, with fiat credit on tap, governments could wage war indefinitely. No accountability, no restraint.
And you gotta comprehend, Call of Duty has shown you guys exactly this. That's why their titles are very interestingly titled about wars that don't end.
Just the printing press fueling the fire. It laid the foundation for the modern military-industrial complex, a permanent wartime economy backed by permanent monetary expansion. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, all financed through the silent theft of inflation, and all made possible because central banks removed the natural limits on state violence. This is the core danger of fiat money. It severs spending from accountability, and it finances destruction in secret. But Bitcoin flips the script. It's not just sound money, it's peaceful money. Because when money can't be printed, wars become harder to fund. A state that must...
Another little titty bit about Bitcoin, interestingly enough, is if you can get your Bitcoin to a cold storage wallet, no matter how long the power is knocked out for, the moment you get power back, you have your Bitcoin back. Because all it will require to do is repower the device that holds your Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying? So even if the power gets knocked out, you're still going to have your Bitcoin.
tax its citizens for every missile launched is a state that thinks twice. Bitcoin is rooted in truth, in rules, not rulers, in scarcity, not war, and in voluntary cooperation, not force. So this is the reality of our fiat world. Money is created from debt. Asset prices are manipulated by credit, and central banks are built to fund war. And most people have no idea. But now you do. And hopefully you can see that there's finally a way out. Bitcoin isn't just a better investment. It's a better system. It's transparent, incorruptible, and peaceful by design. It's the clearest exit from a corrupt, credit-fueled war finance system. This is why Bitcoiners always say, fix the money, fix the world. Now, will Bitcoin fix everything? Of course not. But it does fix the incentives. It rewires the base layer, where corruption spreads, where power concentrates, and where truth is most easily distorted. And that's one of the most important fixes of all. If you want to learn more about these topics, I highly recommend reading The Principles of Economics by Saifedean Ammous, Broken Money by Lynn Alden, and The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin.
I got a whole deep dive on this book, and so this is like how like they fucking got on a train and went somewhere, this Jekyll Island place, and sat down in a fucking room somewhere and thought this up on how to fuck everybody over with the Federal Reserve.
I also recommend checking out the full Tucker Carlson interview with Dr. Richard Werner. The link is in the description.
Thank you.
So
You
my
made it
biggest
easy for me. I
mind-blown
hope
moment
you
when
put it
falling down
there.
the Bitcoin rabbit hole was our fiat monetary system's link to forever wars. What was or currently is your biggest moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And if you got value from this video, hit the like button.
Totally.
Share it with
I already
someone
did
who
it.
needs to
I
hear
got
it.
you. I
And
got it.
subscribe for more
Yep,
high signal
totally.
content every single day.
Yeah, awesome.
Until next time, stay
I
humble,
appreciate you.
keep stacking, and remember, TikTok next block.
TikTok next block. All right, that was a good video. I like it. That was good. That was great. I'll have it in the description below. And everyone, I need you to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that way I can get it off the ground. It would be amazing if you went over there. And actually, you're here already, so you should probably just give it a like and subscribe. And I'm out of here.